Order. And we're going to handle our 6.11, 1115 item, which is a public hearing. Consideration of an ordinance adopting Development Agreement 2401 for the Gwinnett Valley Mixed-Use Plan Development Project as amended, and this was continued from April 14th of 2026. We have our Community Development Director and staff here. I'll turn it over to you to introduce this item.
Thank you. Staff requested a continuance on this item from the last meeting in order to address a few of the wording parts in the recordation section as encouraged to correct by County Council. And so we now are back here today to present it to you.
Okay.
The purpose for bringing this back was because we missed the 10-day recordation deadline, and so changes are appropriate for that one. I'll turn it over to Senior Planner Michelle Iris to explain it further.
Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Board. Michelle Iris, Senior Planner. As Director Turner mentioned, there was some language within the DA itself that relied upon certain timelines for recordation, and the applicant or the developer and County Council came upon an agreement to make that language in accordance with the government code. The difference in that language is recording the DA after execution versus approval being like the board date. So gives folks a little bit more time to go through those processes. So you'll see that amended in the uploaded version by that we worked with on council, and also corrected that section 6 that Supervisor Sabatier mentioned last week.
Okay. Anything further? Do we have any questions from board members at this point before we open to the public?
No, I have some language that needed to be added. I'm waiting for it to come through. I didn't see it.
Go ahead, Supervisor Sabatier.
Yeah, while you're waiting for that, I guess you mentioned section 6, which is section 41 of Exhibit A. Is that what you were talking about, section 6?
Yes, it's in 2 locations. I can grab the section numbers for you right now. It is in 41 as well. And then it was also referenced in, I want to say 6.10, but let me confirm that, 6.1 and 41. So at the last hearing, you just noted that discrepancy, so we revised it in both of those sections to be consistent.
Okay, and then the 10 days after approval, even though this is an amendment, this amendment is still able to record even though the original never was recorded within 10 days?
I'll defer to council on that.
If I may, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So as I understand it, the original agreement that was attached to ordinance number 3151 was not fully executed at all. So hence it was, and also as I understand it, was not recorded. With that being unexecuted, it would not be enforceable. And I'm talking about the development agreement that was attached at the previous ordinance number 3151.
Okay.
Okay.
You ready? Or-
Yeah. Mr. Lloyd, we sent you some additional language that we would like to have added into the 12.5.
So yes,
Was that, did you have more?
No, it's coming forward. It's if the district purchases and operates a well pursuant to the term sheet, developer shall grant the district, which would be Calliope Water, all rights to the groundwater associated with the offsite well.
Go ahead, Mr. Quintovano.
thank you, Mr. Chair. So that may be incorporated upon your board's determination to have that added in the development agreement. May want to see, of course, as part of public comment, and also inquire upon staff, mainly CDD, to inquire on for any input on that from our offices. And procedurally, your board can certainly propose any amendments to be made to what's being presented to you as an ordinance, which also attaches the proposed development agreement. In this case, that additional language is proposed to be added under section 12.5 of the development agreement, again, as part of the ordinance. And your board, then, if your board wishes to proceed with approving the ordinance for first reading, it will be approving it as amended.
Yes, and I did send that to Ms. Maria as well.
Okay. Director, do you want to provide comment on that?
No, we can go ahead and incorporate that if it's amenable to the board.
Okay. So I don't believe I've seen the language. Was that exactly?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm just wondering if you can read out the entirety of
Certainly.
12.5 with that incorporated?
Were you looking at me or at Lloyd?
Some,
One
Whoever.
of us? Whoever gets there first? Okay.
Lloyd's ready? Or Mr. Guantavano, are you ready?
Thank you, Mr.
Yeah, he
Chair.
can hear
So, section 12.5, with the additional language would state, the county encourages the developer to continue to work with the Calliope County Water District regarding the district's purchase of a portion of the off-site well site and the district's operation of a well thereon pursuant to the existing term sheet between the developer and the district. If the district purchase and operates a well pursuant to the term sheet, developer shall grant the district all rights to groundwater associated with the off-site well site.
Okay, thank you. Is there any further question or comment for board before I open it up to the public?
Nope.
No?
Happy.
Okay. We'll go ahead and, do you have anything else? No, okay. Open this up to the public for comment. Does the developer want a public comment on this at all, or? No? Okay. Is there hands in Zoom?
that's all that matters.
Nothing in the room, nothing in Zoom, so I'll close public comment and bring it back to the board for any further discussion. Do we have any further? Not seeing any.
I would like to make the offer.
Go ahead, Mr. Guantavano.
So, thank you, Mr. Chair. So with this being the first reading of the ordinance, I do have prepared for your board's consideration 2 motions that would normally apply to the first reading.
We're ready.
The first motion would be to approve the first reading of the ordinance as amended to be read in title only.
And make the offer.
Second?
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. That carries 5-0.
All right. An ordinance amending ordinance number 3153, adopting development agreement 24-01 for the Gwinnett Valley Mixed Use Plan Development Project.
As amended? Okay.
Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the second motion would be to approve that the draft ordinance be advanced to the next Board of Supervisors meeting for consideration and possible adoption.
You have motion language?
I so offer.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That carries 5-0. That concludes that item. Thank you. Next, we're going to move on.
Chair, just
Yeah.
to check in, are we putting the second on the consent agenda for the following week? Is that the plan?
We can.
'Cause I would be amenable to that. Just want to,
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to move on and at this point handle our 8.1 item, which is sitting as the Board of Equalization, consideration of the following assessment appeal application 15-2024 Myers Storage LLC. And when this was previously in front of us, we had heard presentations and had evidence submitted from both sides. All witnesses were offered for testimony. We closed the hearing, and so the other thing we did is we allowed both parties to submit final written arguments, which we did receive. Those are in our possession. So since we handled it that way, I was not inclined to open anything back up. We have those arguments, and we would go directly into deliberating the item. If the board's pleasure is to ask any questions about those arguments, then we may be looking at opening up the hearing again. Go ahead, Supervisor.
It's just a question. Maybe I'm having amnesia. We approved of final arguments to be submitted to us in the
Yes.
last meeting? Okay.
Yes.
I guess I
Yes,
forgot
we
that
did.
last portion of it.
Yes.
And so do we need to, like, was that submitted under oath? Do we need to have them stand up and say that I'm submitted? Like, we went through an exercise last time, and I feel like we got stuff outside of we closed the public hearing, therefore, like, I guess I'm confused about our process based on how we handled ourselves in the previous meeting.
Go ahead, Mr. Guantamano.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So with that particular instance, that one, the determination of your board, or essentially an order to have the parties submit final written arguments by, just want to make sure of the date here, April 17, close of business day, April 17, was done, stems from essentially a stipulation between the parties where the chair of the board inquired upon both sides to see if they are amenable or open to an agreement, a stipulation to submit final written arguments, and then pursuant, and both sides agreed to, and your board then subsequently made that as a requirement to set that date. It's the submission of the final written arguments is optional from either side. And so working under those parameters, because it's done pursuant to stipulation, certainly there's an argument there that both on an equitable level and also arguably procedurally, that this was submitted to your board within the stated deadline as stipulated by the parties, despite the property tax rule provisions under 313. It just gives an opportunity for the parties to submit their final written arguments for your board's consideration. Testimony has been closed on this matter, and that was just an opportunity from each side to provide arguments then in support of their positions for your board's consideration.
Right, and thank you, Mr. Guinavantos. So the way I see the process at this point is the discussion up here is going to be deliberations between us, and we shouldn't be asking questions of the parties, or we're going to have to look at reopening the hearing. So that's where we sit right now. So we're also not going to take any comments from the parties during the deliberations. Otherwise, we're looking at reopening the hearing. That's the way I see it.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. So with that, we would begin our deliberations on this item. Does any board member want to start discussion? How we're going to deliberate, or do we need to establish that? Go ahead, Supervisor.
I was waiting to see if the district supervisor from the area would start, but I just want to make sure we have now in front of us a new lower value that was offered from the assessor. So instead of starting where we were before, or I guess they're all the options, because they're different ways of valuating. We have obviously the $700,000 from the appellant, and then we have the assessor who was saying a low of $857,000. I just wanted to make sure at least the public was aware. Obviously, they're in the attachments, but just want to open it up with, we have a tighter status on that. I guess it sucks because I kind of want to ask a question because it was brought up here, like the value of the business. And it's not that I don't think it belongs there, and it's the entrepreneurial profit. Like at 20% of the value of the land and the additive costs and everything, that makes it for $126,000. Like, if you make more profits because you're better at marketing or you're better at your job, like suddenly your property value goes up. Like I struggle with that. Versus the value of the building and the value of the land. And I know we're doing commercial, maybe I'm trying to simplify it in a way that I'm used to seeing like residential stuff. But when I went through some of the last information, and it is a little difficult for me to go through like the amount of information that we received, in the sense that there seems to be a lot of private information. Like I don't know that we should know how much we're renting out a storage like that to me is again based on the skill sets of the business owner on what they can get for the product that they're trying to provide. And I struggle where the 20% comes from, and I feel that $126,000 is something that I'm looking to see if we can flex. And I appreciate that the assessor's office reduced it again and again and again, but I also can't help but feel some weirdness about starting at the 4.2 million, which would have been a $42,000 bill, versus where we are now at 857, which is an $8,570 bill. And again, I'm simplifying the whole process. And so if it was that easy to get down there, and there's really not that much wiggle room in between, I guess I'm looking for somewhere in between halfway. And because I'm uncomfortable in a situation that I'm not an expert in this process, and I'm having to trust what I guess is deemed as the professionals, and I mean that without being rude, but yet we went from 4.2 million to 857,000, and then I have a person who purchased the property, and I believe that that was the purchase price, that may or may not meet what is a arm's length. And so I'm looking to, I guess, not appease either one of the folks that are in this room and see if we can meet them halfway and go there.
Well, just,
I'll start that off.
so I know you said you wanted to ask a question. I'm not sure if that's,
And
Still,
I don't want to ask a question because I don't want to reopen the whole entire process.
That's what I wanted.
I'm just kind of speaking through my process
Okay.
of what I've done, because I just, the 20% is weird. If you're successful at a business, I don't think that we should automatically just value your property better. It should really be based on the value of the cost of the building, the value of the land, and I guess to a certain impact, what kind of business can go there and what kind of business can create that value where it's attractive to sell. But the quality of the manager of the business should not have an impact on the value of the property, in my opinion. And again, coming from a layman place, not an expert place.
okay. Supervisor Owen?
As my mother once said, a horse is worth what one person is willing to part with it for and another's willing to buy it. So, talking to Mr. Brown, he had other people interested in that parcel, in that property, and they thought the price was too high. Looking at comparables, and mind you, I also want to say that I did spend, I think I had mentioned this last time, about 4.5 hours in the office, and I have a great deal of respect for the people that are doing the auditing. And I also know that their hands are tied as far as what they can look at. If it's been on the market for over 90 days, or if it hasn't sold within X amount of days, they can't use that as a comparable. So, but I honestly believe that looking at some of the others that we can look at for comparables to, which would be the one that sold for, I think it was in Lakeport for, I was looking for it just now, $750,000, and it had a home on it, and it was paved, and it had more units. That'd been on the market asking much more, and they weren't able to get it, and they weren't able to sell it till they dropped it to $750,000. So personally, I'm in this belief that it's worth $700,000. That's what they paid for it. That's what Rob was able to get for it, and I think we need to be right there where they purchased it at.
Supervisor Vice Chair Pyska?
And I did go and visit the property and had a long conversation with the property owners. And the issue is this is not an arm's length transaction, though. That's what's key, is that this the purchase price, $700,000, also has seller financing. And when you have seller financing,
You can sometimes have a lower price because you're making it up later with interest. And so, we've gotten some information from county council and from the assessor's office that we can't use that price. But we do have some recalculations from the assessor's office, so I'm happy to look at those.
Okay. Go ahead, Supervisor Crandall.
Yeah, I'm glad it came down more. I know that when I first seen this, and I was thinking about it afterwards, like if this was contested if it wasn't contested at 4.2, they would be paying that amount. And so, for me, I was glad to see that it came down to this amount. If there needs to be one more calculation, like you said, Supervisor Sabatier, I'm fine with that too. I'm just glad it came down because I don't think I could have went with even the 1.2 myself. So, yeah.
Okay, so Supervisor Sabatier, you made a comment about somewhere in the middle of the 700 and the 857, I believe, is what we're looking at. Did you have a calculation on that?
778,500 to be exact.
778, 500. And so it sounds like, I believe, Mr. Quintovano, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just for your board's reference, as far as for purposes of this review, certain property tax rules would apply that would outline the standards of review. Right? So property tax rule 321 sub F does state that no greater relief may be granted than is justified by the evidence that was produced at that hearing. So all the way up to the Friday deadline, April 17th deadline to submit written arguments. What you have before your board for consideration are the figures that were presented to you by the respective parties as to what they've argued as the proper amount. You see at least four proposed amounts from the assessor recorder. Property tax rule 313 also states that your board may act only upon the basis of the proper evidence admitted into the records. And there was also mentioned the issue of whether or not an open market transaction takes place. That speaks to the burden of proof, where if your board then determines that an open market transaction did not occur in relation to that sale, the assessor then has the burden of proof to show the fair market value to be other than the purchase price of the subject property as evidenced by factors affecting the purchase price. That's all presented to you in a matter of arguments and evidence by the assessor recorder. So in light of those sections, the suggestion here for your board would be to consider what evidence and arguments that's presented before you, and on that specific issue of whether or not certain amounts can be modified that was not stated in either the arguments or the evidence. The suggestion here would be to, for purposes of whether or not to grant or deny the appeal, to reference those whatever amounts your board determines to be more appropriate. If your board diverges from any of those submitted amounts, certain findings would have to be made also based on the evidence that was presented to you as to why this different amount would be the proper amount for purposes of granting or denying the appeal.
I see.
So what evidence do you have, Supervisor Sabatier, for that number then?
I mean, I could only base it on what I've seen on multiple, and yeah, they reduced it. I guess I'll just be blunt, even though it might hurt, but I'm not sure how much I can trust what I have in front of me when I've seen so many commercial properties have to be greatly reduced, and it keeps getting reduced. Should we postpone another week and it'll get reduced again? Like, I'm struggling to understand what the process is to give us 6 different numbers to look at. And I guess I'm just saying, give it more time, we'll get to 700,000. Give it more time, we'll get a little bit lower. And I was stunned to see a new number in the information that we received. And that means that either A, there's been 0 communication between the assessor's office and the appellant and the property owner to have these discussions, to obtain the information, to be able to ascertain the true value of the property, or there's a misunderstanding in how to do the appraisals for commercial properties, because I think it's more of a commercial concern that I have than anything specific. Because again, I was stunned to see the number going down. So yes, it's explained in a way that I guess I can say that they provide the evidence, but like, why wasn't that there in the first place? And when we met, we had 3 different numbers going through different ways of evaluating the property, and now we have another way of going about it. And that's where my concern sits. I guess I have no evidence other than I'm struggling for what I'm supposed to trust.
And I share the concerns, but we have to make a decision that has findings that's based on the evidence.
Well,
And
I feel that the evidence is what was paid, which is the 700,000.
right, but it's not, I mean, you can't, it has to be an arm's length transaction, and it's not. So that is what, I mean, that's the issue with using that number.
Where's that in writing? Where's that documented that that's what it has to be?
Go ahead, Mr. Guantavano. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the provision that calls for the assessor having the burden of proof to show the fair market value to be other than the purchase price of the subject property, as evidenced by factors affecting the purchase price, when your board determines that an open market transaction did not occur. That's based on Revenue and Taxation Code 110.
Did you have further, Mr. Guantavano? No, okay. So it sounds to me like we wouldn't be able to come up with a modified number.
So,
I'm not hearing the,
so I mean, just to prove my point, so I'm looking at the Board of Equalization handbook, and they're using 15% for entrepreneurial profit in their example. Why are we at 20%? I think there's a certain amount of discretion here that I'm not certain why we're using the number. When I do granted, I'm just using AI, it's between 10 and 20%, but I'm here looking at the Board of Equalization, and their example for estimated entrepreneurial profit is 15%. So I think there's room in there. It's just whether or not we're willing. If you want that evidence, I mean, I think that using Board of Equalization is evidence. I think that it should be, it's not that I think it should be lower. I just don't know who to trust, and I don't want to say one or the other because it doesn't appear that it was arm's length transaction. And I know that I'm hearing otherwise, but until I'm told otherwise, at this moment in time, I haven't received the evidence to say so. But I'm also looking at the numbers that we use, and there's a certain level of discretion that I think we should be able to change, even though there needs to be evidence. I don't have evidence as to why we're using 20%. We're not exactly a affluent community, so why are we using a higher percentage than what the Board of Equalization is using as an example of direct and indirect costs, hence the entrepreneurial profit?
can you offer any feedback on that 15% number?
For that issue, the staff can certainly look into that further. Now, procedurally for your board's options, what's before your board today is whether or not to grant or deny the appeal. That is tied in to certain rebuttable presumptions that's outlined in Revenue and Taxation Code 110, part of which is a determination by your board whether or not an open market transaction took place. I already reiterated that, which if that did not occur, then the burden of proof falls on the assessor recorder. That burden of proof is by a preponderance of evidence based on what was already presented to your board as evidence, testimony, and all the way up to April 17th, final written arguments by the parties. So procedurally, your board can certainly review or re-review those matters, and my suggestion here, if it's gonna involve legal counsel's opinions as to the standards and how to weigh that evidence and what to take into account, your counsel, as county counsel, I would strongly recommend to hold it in closed session, because then we're getting into certain potential communications between attorney-client. That is one option for your board. The other option is to deliberate on it right now based on what was presented to you and what is currently before your board, for purposes of whether or not to grant the appeal. And if the appeal is granted, it's $700,000, because that's what the appellant is arguing in filing the appeal. If your board decides to deny the appeal, based on the standards that I've laid out under Property Tax Rule 321 and 313, you have at least 4 options here that's outlined to date as of April 17th by the assessor recorder. And those amounts are based, at least in part, with what was presented to your board at the previous hearing on this.
That would be the original 4 numbers plus the new one at 857. Just to be clear.
Yes, and that was, I think it was uploaded and as part of the agenda.
We have it. It was 4, and this is the newest one, the 857. Supervisor Owen?
Okay, under California law, I believe, and it's primarily under Proposition 13, assessors aim to determine fair market value, defined as the price a willing buyer and willing seller would agree to, with neither under compulsion and both having responsible knowledge of the facts. Seller financing can still meet with standards if it reflects market behavior. And that no seller financing by itself does not disqualify a sale from being considered as arm's length transactions for property tax assessment purposes.
Supervisor Sabatier?
And I appreciate that, and this is where my lack of knowledge on this is just killing me. But if we drop it from 20% to 10%, it would be $793,931,000. Just wanted to at least put it out there if there's an evidentiary way of getting to that middle ground.
10%?
That's a 10% entrepreneurial profit versus 20%.
I just think it's wrong for us to step in and say, no, this is the market value. You did not sell it at market value. I just think it's government overstep, and I think we need to go with what the actual market value was at that time. They did do their due diligence. There was other people involved, and as far as looking at the property, who felt it was overpriced, and with others selling in the area for not much more, $50,000 more, and being larger, better location, and more infrastructure. I just think that that's a very fair market value, and we need to go with what they paid for it.
Well, I'm not sure if we have an evidentiary way to get to the 10%.
Thank you for listening.
I'm just going back to that other question that's out on the floor as well.
Which question is that? Is
Well,
that-
we've got one request to grant the appeal and go with the 700. And we've been discussing this other number that came back from the assessor at 857. And then Supervisor Sabatier brought up this 10%, which would make it 98 somewhere in that, so my question was, not sure if we have an evidentiary way to justify that. Because
Right.
we've,
I'm going to ask one more question.
yeah, go ahead.
Since we're getting into this, do we want to open it back up for comment from the appellant and the county and anybody else that needs to comment on it? I can see there, it looks like, yes, I'm thinking they have something that they might want to say.
So the board does, we would have the discretion to reopen, but if we reopen the hearing, then that's going to potentially also delay the deliberations as well to another time.
I think it's important that they have their say.
Hey, go ahead, Supervisor Sabatier.
So going back to what Supervisor Owen said, I guess I do want to check in with County Council. Again, going back to the statement of two people who have knowledge of the property, so on and so forth. What exactly is the checklist of what makes an arm's length transaction? And so, I mean, what I'm reading, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is exposure on an open market for a sufficient amount of time, neither the buyer nor the seller able to take advantage of the exigencies of the other, both parties seeking to maximize their gains, both buyer and seller having full knowledge of the property and acting prudently. Am I reading incorrectly? And does this, and I'm assuming it doesn't because it wasn't in the open market for a sufficient amount of time, but can you help us to identify if it meets it or if it doesn't meet it based on your review of that? Or am I reading the wrong information here and this is not the checklist that would tell us if it's an arm's length transaction?
Mr. Quintivano?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So my office could certainly look at that issue. That, I believe, to some degree was already raised as far as that particular issue of whether or not this was this was actually an open market transaction by both sides. This was already presented to your board as evidence and argument and testimony by the parties. Your board's role in this should be to take that evidence in, those arguments, and make a determination of whether or not that's an open market transaction. The checklist, as far as standards of what's an open market transaction, if your board is willing to pursue that issue, then I would like to reiterate my request. It would be a recommendation to continue this hearing for continued deliberations in closed session because that delves into attorney-client privilege, with my office being the quote-unquote attorney and the county being the client in this, and even in delving in that issue. So that is certainly an option for your board. My office can certainly do some more research on that and continue on with deliberations. Also, as a side note, again, and I'm citing like certain code sections here, but again, going back to Revenue and Taxation Code 110, for purposes of your board's deliberation, it also, generally speaking, it states, it references that while the purchase price for purposes of your board's review would be admissible to prove market value, that alone would not be conclusive on its own, along with the other standards set forth in Revenue and Taxation Code 110.
Okay.
Procedural question, if I could.
We can't take comment right now.
You're gonna get comment one way or the other. I'm gonna get thrown out of here, but this is not right what's going on.
Well,
The information that you have from them, it was not provided to the appellant. And he's already stated he's representing the county, which means he's gonna do everything he can to help.
okay, Mr. Brown, we might, there's a question about reopening it. I'm not sure if we're going to go there.
The coward way to do it.
No, we had talked about, there was a question up here about reopening the hearing that I haven't got to yet. I was waiting for this to come out. Do you have another question, Supervisor Owen?
I do. I am absolutely opposed to doing closed session on this. I think when you have an appellant, they need to hear what the decision-making is. And I have sat up here on this dais, and I have heard people complain about things not being done correctly. And I need to know that this is done above board and where everybody can see where people are sitting on it. And I am the one that just asked to open it up today again for them to hear and to be able to speak. But I am not for putting this in closed session.
Okay, can I check in with the board and find out is there a consensus to reopen the hearing at all before we continue this?
Yes.
I see 1, 2,
I'd be fine with it.
okay. All right, so, what's that?
Just a comment. Do we want to set a time? I just, like, I'm not saying because we have other things to do, but I want to make a decision. I think they want a decision.
Right.
And we can reopen it. I'll be honest, I think we're going to hear things, but I don't know that we're going to be anywhere better off because we've heard all the comments. All they're going to do is rebut one another. And again, we're going to have to figure out who we think is more correct. So it's not that I don't want to reopen it, but this is going to, I'm not sure that I'm going to necessarily gain more than the original arguments that were being made. These are going to be arguments about one another's arguments. And, yeah.
Well, my thought is if we reopened it, it was going to be, limited to the final arguments and what's been being discussed. But it sounds like we have consensus to do that. You were suggesting a set time at a later date? Is
No,
that-
a set time to make sure that we
Oh, you're talking about
are not here an hour and a half later.
yeah, you're talking about time for each side to make comments. So I would agree with that. So I would think, let me just check in. If I do reopen this, how much time would Myers Storage need to provide us with any comments? 10 minutes. Okay. What about the assessor's office? About 10 minutes. So that would put us, how does the board feel about that? Okay.
I'm fine.
Okay. Then we'll go ahead and reopen the public hearing, and each side will get, go ahead, Mr. Guinevere.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If your board, since your board has decided to reopen the public hearing, your board may want to consider swearing in the witnesses for
Yes.
anyone who would want to provide arguments, testimony
Yes.
in the reopen hearing.
So anybody that's here for both sides that would testify or provide comments within this 10 minutes, which is 10 minutes for each side, not for each person, is going to need to stand and be sworn. Do we have anyone online?
I don't see any hands online. Everybody else with your right hand raised, do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Okay. And is there a issue on which side I should allow to go first? They're each only going to get
Let the assessors.
10 minutes.
Depends on,
I would-
we'll look at the standard here
It's
for
a non-owner occupied, so
It should be the assessors.
trying to
assessor recorder.
see the assessor recorder would go first, and then we would have the other side go.
I have a procedural question, if I could, now that it's open.
Go ahead.
So, Rob Brown, Kelseyville. So, things must have changed a lot since the dozens of these that I was allowed to do. And we learned from previous county council, Cameron Reeves and Anita Grant, that there is a lot of flexibility that the board has. And one of the items is if they can justify the cost of it based on the sales cost and all that. Arm's length, there's a lot of flexibility that the board has, and arm's length, if I'd been asked the question, I could have explained what I'd done to make sure that it was on the open market by contacting people that were interested in it. But also, the thing that is glaring is the information that you guys have. I gathered from Bruno that you didn't see the additional argument.
Oh, we have
Oh, you
those.
did, okay, because the appellants never got this. We're sitting back there, 875, where the hell did that come from? So, it's the responsibility of the county to make sure that the appellant has that information. Now we're going to sit up here for 10 minutes and still trying to read that stuff at the same time? I don't know.
Okay,
It's up to
we'll
them.
check in on that.
Yeah, but what county council hasn't mentioned to you is that you do have the flexibility based on the information and evidence that was provided to you. And for someone to suggest that the property is sold for less because you'll make up with it on the financing is absolutely ignorant.
Mr. Chair, if I may?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not procedural anymore. The assessor recorder goes first. And
Yes,
then
thank you.
the appellant, and then anyone else who was sworn in.
Thank you. So the assessor recorder?
Thank you so much for your time. Okay, so we just wanted to go over it's like you said, a rebuttal. In regards to the cost approach, the valuation, land valuation, Mr. Brown purchased the raw land in 2019 for $105,000, reflecting its value as undeveloped commercial property. And once the improvements are developed, that land's value increases accordingly. It's no longer worth the $105,000. In regards to entrepreneurial profit, there's a return on investment. Entrepreneurial profit is defined as the total profit realized from a project based on the figures provided. The sales price of $700,000 minus the actual construction cost of $405,836 results in a profit of $294,164. When you divide that construction cost, this reflects a profit margin of approximately 72%, which significantly exceeds the upper market projection of 20%. That's why we have the 20%. We stayed with that because that was the high end of what we found. In regards to depreciation, the initial determination of 0% depreciation was based on the rent roll provided, which indicated that the property had not been occupied or rented prior to August 4th of 2023, the date on which occupancy appears to have begun with 40 storage units rented. Additional verification was requested but not provided. Furthermore, the prior owner, Mr. Brown, certified under penalty of perjury that business operations had not commenced prior to sale negotiations to qualify for the builder's exclusion. This would have meant that the buildings were in new condition. In the most recent cost approach, the appraiser's office applied 2 years of depreciation. You received this on our final, equating to 5%. The request for 6 years of depreciation falls outside of the scope of the 2023 appeal period. In regards to comparable sales, we maintain that in this case, the comparable sales approach is the least reliable method for valuation. It was an error made for the 4.4, like we've said before. 4.5, pardon me, thank you very much. 4.5. If any of you were assessed something that much too high, you would have come to us, which they did, and which then we asked for further information. They supplied it, which is how we came to their income approach. In regards to full cash value, the appellant was asked to provide financing details, including lease terms, interest rate, and monthly payments. However, this information was not supplied to us until the last appeal hearing. Based on the financial data presented at the hearing, the assessor's office recalculated the property's full cash value, resulting in an indicated value of $857,000. In conclusion, the appraiser's office requested information several times throughout the appeal process. The valuation changes were made according to information researched or provided as it was provided. The appraiser's office continues to conclude that the income approach of 1.210 is the most reliable. That is the information they supplied to us very first. That is their income, their expenses, their rents. And notably, the appellant has not disputed any component of the income approach in the last final. The information we have changes because we didn't have all of the information as we requested it over and over again. And so those changes were implemented as the information was provided. That's it.
Okay, anything further? Thank you.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Can you talk about whether or not this is an arm's length transaction? Since that's
Yes,
one of the issues
Mr.
we're trying to
Sabatier,
figure out?
he spoke to that himself. It has to be on the open market. That is what we are held by the Board of Equalization, and that's what we have to go by. So if the Board of Equalization says that it has to be on the open market, that's what we have to follow.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Myers? Did you have a question before we move
No,
on?
no, I'm sorry. I'll wait till we're done.
As a government employee myself, I took an oath to defend members of the community against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And Mr. Chair, as a prior law enforcement officer in this state, if you arrested someone for a simple misdemeanor DUI and accidentally booked them on vehicular manslaughter, you would not get to call a judge and say, oops, sorry, I meant to book them on assault with a deadly weapon on a vehicle, when all they did was get arrested for DUI. The fact that we've gone from 4.5 to 121 to, I can't even keep track because now there's 5 numbers. When is it me as a private citizen's responsibility to provide information to the government with no warrant, no subpoena? I'm supposed to be free in this country that I love so much. I bought a property from another willing participant. I have no requirement to open up my books and my home to the government to let them do as they wish. This is crazy. We all took an oath to support the First Amendment and the Fourth Amendment and the Fifth Amendment. We're using our Fifth Amendment to not just openly provide every piece of information. They wanted copies of contracts to include social security numbers, addresses, phone numbers, driver's license numbers of dozens of tenants that we have. It's a completely asinine request for a government to require that information and then stand up here and try to tattle on us that we didn't give them that information with no warrant and no subpoena.
Sorry. One of our arguments was the entrepreneurial profit that you guys had talked about before. We read up that Marshall and Swift, the system they use, it does not automatically include entrepreneurial profit. It must be supported by the market. And there's no evidence that buyers of small utility limited storage facilities pay a developer premium. It's a simple property with no utilities, no office, no development complexity. It's also an existing stabilized asset, not a new development project. So even though Mr. Brown built it, we bought it as a running business already. We didn't build it at a risk of, let's see how this business goes and let's get our profit back. Like, no, we bought it. It was a running business, and that's what we bought it for. So to us, adding entrepreneurial profit would push the value above the actual purchase price and income-supported value. For those reasons, we don't believe that we should have an entrepreneurial profit, or if you do, it should be like 5%, not a huge 20% that puts $126,000 more into the cost of what we purchased it for. Also, they added $50,000 to our land, which we understand that land, it goes up, but they put $50,000 just because we had it graded. We paid like a little over $5,000 to have it graded and gravelled, and that was already within our site improvement. So why we're adding $50,000 plus they didn't even add like just $5,000 in our site improvement, so it was more than that. That's just like double charging us on things. So that's our, I guess, main arguments against that.
Do we need to officially call a witness of Mr. Brown, or is he free to come up here and speak?
You can speak as part of your time.
He's not that tall.
I'm gonna do my best to be calm. I'm supposed to be doing that for my health, but this kind of stuff just fires me up. You need those kids worse than they need you. And without businesses like them and taxpayers like them, none of this exists. The reason they have the appeal process, which, by the way, there was a $3,000 appeal process filing fee implemented because the assessor's office didn't want to be bothered by a bunch of appeals that they're probably going to be looking forward to, because there's going to be a campaign for this whole thing. And so basically what they've done is pay $3,000 to pay for staff to stab them in the back. This is not right what's gone on here. That was a fair price. It was a fair market price. This thing that she alluded to that I signed under penalty of perjury was a builder exclusion to allow for how much I was going to pay for tax. It's totally irrelevant to what they have. I don't even know why the red herring even was thrown up there. Has absolutely nothing to do with them. I had nearly a $300,000 profit on that. That's pretty good profit for that. And it wasn't because I was going to be getting, you don't know about my business or theirs to begin with, so you're making assumptions that benefit you, not them. And it's incorrect. Rather than wait for the bank to go through all that process, because the bank is as close to government as you can get, and they're incompetent and they're not efficient. So instead of doing that, I offered to finance it for them. It wasn't because I went, oh, well, I'm going to be making a lot of money off the financing, so let's just give you a lower price. That's incorrect. It's a silly statement to make, not based on any fact. It was a fair price that they paid for it. It's not worth that now. And for the government to come in, like Joe said, come in and say, how much do you make? And depending upon that is how much you're going to pay. What is more un-American than that? They're already paying taxes on what they make, income tax. Now you're going to tax them again on the property tax? It's just not absolutely not fair. You do have discretion. I haven't heard it yet from county council, and I'm not allowed to talk to him, so you'll have to ask him if this is true or not. The board does have discretion. The agency that would bring it up would be them or who they answer to at the state. They don't bring it up. We did many of these, and they were all fair based on the price. The financing, the real estate agent that we talked to said, in fact, she was one of the people that was interested in buying the property. So she was one that was on the open market. She said, you're better off if you can just do an owner-seller together. And she said, I would help you out and all that, but it doesn't need to be listed because that's what you're going to get. She helped me with the comps. That was Cassie Pivniska, very competent in what she does. So we were very comfortable with that. And we're told that the only reason this doesn't qualify completely as arm's length is because it wasn't listed on the open market. Now, you say for a substantial amount of time. How many angels fit on a head of a pin? You don't know, and you don't know how many days it's supposed to be listed. It could have been listed 2 days. Who knows what it is? We haven't heard that number, so it's silly. That's a silly argument meant to benefit the government, not to benefit the taxpayers, as is most of the time the case. So I'm not saying much about, what's going on with them, more about principle, and I think you need to really look within yourself as to what that principle is as far as the taxes. Bruno asked a question, very valid question, and Lloyd answered it with, well, as long as you have something, some proof, some evidence showing what that is. There's been no evidence than this dartboard that the tax assessors has used. They started out with the bullseye of $4.5 million, and they kept hitting the dartboard, and then they got it down to $875,000, which we found out that today. All that is a dartboard. They're talking in circles to give you justification as to why they did what they did in order to avoid being wrong. When being wrong is actually being right, because it benefits the taxpayer. The taxpayer then is able to spend more money in the county like they do. But what we're going to do is punish them because they're successful, as opposed to the one next door is much larger, taxed for much less, but they don't run a good business either. So these folks are being punished because of that. I'm telling you, like Lloyd says, your choices are to uphold the appeal or to deny it. You need to uphold the appeal at $700,000. That's the fair thing to do. They're not asking for anything less than what they paid for. It was a fair market value, fair market price, and that's what you 5 sitting up there have the ability to do and the obligation to do. He says he works for the county. He does not. He works for the taxpayers. We all need to remember that. We need to remind ourselves. I did it many times. You have to remind yourself you work for the taxpayers, not for the county.
Thank you. Mr. Myers, does that complete your information? Thank you. So I believe I'll go ahead and reclose the hearing and bring it back to the board for further deliberation. Were you no. I didn't know if you were trying to get my attention. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For your board's reference, a couple of things. Property Tax Rule 324 states that your board is not required to choose between the opinions of value promoted by the parties to the appeal, but your board shall make your own determination of value based upon the evidence properly admitted at the hearing. That's the materials, that's the testimony that's been presented to your board at the previous hearing, materials and the testimony provided to you today in making that determination. So if your board wishes to diverge from the amounts, that opinions of value that were presented by either party, the suggestion here from my side of things would be to specifically refer to which piece of evidence, which portion of evidence or testimony that your board would be relying on in support of that different value, the ones which would be different from what was already presented to you by either side. Also, just to note, and under Property Tax Rule 313, and it was reiterated before, but just to reiterate again, board members or hearing officers may not act or decide on an application based upon consideration of prior knowledge of the subject property, information presented outside of the hearing, or personal research. So that's just a reminder to your board again to, as an exercise for purposes of whether or not to deny or grant this appeal, to have that determination be based on what's presented to you as evidence.
Thank you. Supervisor Owen?
I would like to offer this appeal application, and at 1524, or 2024 Myers Storage LLC, I would like to offer that we move forward and grant the appeal.
Go ahead.
She's offering it. Should I just allow her to offer it first and go? I just had a comment.
Okay.
You want to make a comment?
Yeah, I was. After hearing what you just said, Lloyd, I remember in the past there was a evaluation situation in my district that was made, and it ended up coming back to us later. And in looking into that, it's not based on anything that's here today. It's based on that and what you just said. I'm in support of the $700,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you have it?
Just a procedural thing for,
Yeah.
as far as your board's decision on this. If your board decides to either make a decision, move forward with a decision granting or denying the appeal, that I do have the prepared motion language for that, because it would involve also a notice, because the parties have requested a statement of findings of facts, so that's another component as part of the motion language, when your board is ready.
I want to check in on something. I was just told by the clerk that we had someone with a hand up, but I don't believe they were a witness that was sworn, were they? No, because we don't, with the Board of Equalization, we don't take public comment. This is just people that are sworn, and there is no public comment, so I just wanted to clarify that.
And I'll just say again, you mentioned that we can't use evaluation off of our own personal research, and that's what I'm hearing, and that it has to be based on what was given today. And so, and I know we're looking at evidence today as what's in front of us, because it can't be from before, but what I'm using in my head also is mentioning that I remember a specific situation where I don't want to be again. I don't know if that makes any difference, but that's why I'm making my decision to support the appellant.
Go ahead, Supervisor Smith.
I don't necessarily agree with what you're agreeing with, but I think that the experience we gain from going through each and every single one of them allows us to better understand how the property tax laws work. So I don't think that you having a better understanding of property taxes because of past experiences is a bad thing. I don't think it's that specific property. So I see no issues with using past experience because it's not about that specific property. And if I'm thinking about the property you're thinking
are
about,
thinking of the property.
absolutely, this is why I'm saying I'm struggling.
But if I can't make a decision to support what you and I have already said that we would agree with, and I'm forced to make a decision, then it would be the lesser amount.
Right.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Okay, Supervisor, or Vice Chair Pyska?
I am really struggling with all of these amounts, with everything that's been changing. But I also really do not feel like this is an arm's length transaction, so I can't support the $700 value. It was not on the market. Even, I know you did research and you talked to a realtor, but that's not on the market. There was never an appraisal. There's seller financing. If it was a different financer, then there would have been an appraisal involved. So I would like to get this number as low as possible, but I can't support the 700 for those reasons.
Okay, is there anything else? And my thought is, I mean, we've got to either grant the appeal or deny the appeal, and I'm not seeing where there's evidence that I can find to come up or to justify a different number that we would come up with. I'm not feeling like we have evidence to make a justification today to get to a different number than what either the appellant or the assessor has provided. So, yeah, I think that's, unless there's anything else. I know there was a proposed motion offered, I believe.
I think he wanted to reframe it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You want to
Read it.
reframe that and see where that goes?
Yes, so thank you, Mr. Chair. So the motion language would be to move to grant, I may have a second here. Move to grant assessment appeal application number 15-2024 with the determination of value of $700,000 and direct staff to prepare findings of fact to be submitted for your board's consideration.
I have one more question.
Go ahead.
With that, I'd like to offer it, but I do have one more question. Is this going to be, are they going to have a refund on the overtaxation of this?
It is going back to 2023, I believe,
Okay, good.
or whatever year that was, I think.
Thank you. I'd like to offer.
It'll be so moved.
So moved.
So we have a motion. Go ahead, do you have a question?
Just a quick question for County Council. If this motion doesn't pass, then are we done? And what's the number, or do we continue conversation? I want us to better understand what this vote potentially could mean. Obviously, a yes is in the favor of $700,000, but what happens if it's a no vote?
And just for clarification, if I may, Mr. Chair,
Yes, please.
but by no, you mean if the appeal is denied?
Yes.
That would be up to your board. So what's before your board on the table today, I believe it's seconded, is a motion to grant the appeal under the language that I proposed. If that motion fails by vote, then the item is still before your board for any possible motions that your board may want to consider.
I just wanted to check. Thank you. That's what I needed.
So there is a motion
And I seconded.
on the floor and a second. So we're call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Nay. So that passes 3-2.
3-2.
And if I may, Mr. Chair, the next, there is a second motion language here, in light of the preparation, direction to staff to prepare findings of fact. That would be a motion to continue this hearing, this appeal hearing, at a date and time certain, because it is a continuation, and it's a little different from other public hearings, but the way your board has done it in the past is that it would be a continuation date to a date and time certain, to allow staff to prepare findings of fact that will then be submitted to your board for consideration and final decision.
Yes, correct.
Is that the motion?
It's
Yeah.
not, it's,
So it would,
So the,
oh, we need a date,
Oh, the,
because it's date and time certain. It's not like another appeal that we've done where you just have 45 days that you have to bring it back.
it's not addressed as far as the exact day, so it's open-ended.
so we don't need a date and time certain right now.
You would, only because that's how it's been done in the past with,
So we're waiting for the clerk.
2 weeks.
May 5th.
Does anybody have a problem with that date? Okay.
May 12th?
May 12th?
Oh, May 5th?
You did.
Okay,
Are you okay with that?
that's fine.
Yeah, May. Well, that's why I was wanting to clarify. May 12th at 1:15? At 2? May 12th at 2 p.m.?
Ish.
2 p.m.-ish?
So just to clarify, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Yes, please.
So it would be a motion to continue this assessment appeal hearing 15-2024 to May 12th at 2 p.m. For consideration of prepared findings of fact as it relates to this appeal.
So moved.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That carries 5-0. So that will conclude this item today. And let's take a short break. Thank you. And I intend to call the 6.13 when we get back from break. like we're ready. You guys ready? I'm going to call our meeting back to order, and we're going to handle our 6.13 item, 1:30 p.m. item, which is consideration of a letter from the United States General Services Administration requesting response from the County of Lake regarding transfer of property surrounding the former U.S. Coast Guard Loran Sea Station. And this will be started by our administrative office. Mr. Carter,
Thank you,
I'll
Chair.
turn it over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Assistant County Administrative Officer Stephen Carter, is it on?
I can't hear you very good.
Maybe I just need to be closer.
You need to be closer.
Before you today is a request for board direction regarding a recent letter from the United States General Services Administration, or GSA, concerning the former U.S. Coast Guard Loran Sea Station property near Middletown. By way of background, in 2000, Congress authorized GSA to transfer 733 acres to Lake County at no cost. It was surrounding the Loran Station itself, which is 403 acres inside of that, which I call a donut property. At that time, the county had expressed interest in the site for a potential emergency operations center. However, while the land itself would have been conveyed without purchase cost, the transfer came with significant obligations on the county. The county would have been required to pay for a full survey and legal description of the property, address easements and right-of-ways, construction and maintenance of fire breaks, and install a fence separating the transferred land from the station area, so inside the circle. In addition, the federal government would have retained the right to reclaim the property under certain circumstances, such as unauthorized transfer or commercial use. Because of those costs and restrictions, prior boards did not move forward, and in 2016, the county formally notified GSA that the letter was sent that we did not intend to acquire the property and had no specific plans for its use. Since then, Middletown Rancheria has expressed interest in acquiring the land, and Congressman Mike Thompson has indicated support for that effort. Most recently, on March 18th, 2026, GSA notified the county via letter that it intends to declare the surrounding property surplus and asked whether Lake County would like to change its prior position. GSA has requested a response by May 15th, which is why we're bringing it today, in 2026. For clarity, this request pertains to the approximately 733 acre piece of the overall parcel previously identified for transfer, not the Loran Station building itself, which is part of the 433 acres. At this time, staff is seeking your board direction, including whether to reaffirm the county's 2016 position or provide alternative direction. And that's my presentation on the item.
Thank you. Supervisor Owen?
I would like to confirm that we do have interest in inquiring. I believe it's both parcels at this time being offered. Is that correct?
No.
No, just the one? Okay. So I would like to confirm that we do have interest in acquiring this property. And I would also like the stipulation put in there that if there is any potential environmental issues, which I had heard of many years ago, pertaining to transformers being disposed of on site. If there is any environmental issues that do arise, that the federal government would be responsible for the cleanup. As far as where it goes, I would like to bring it to math as well, and we can have a further discussion on the what we're going to do with that property at a later time, but where our time crunch is right now is on confirming that we are interested in it. Now, I believe with that, because my understanding when I read that, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that they're going to be adding the other 433 acres to it, or 400 something acres to it. Is that correct?
Eventually, yes.
Yes. And so at that time, the fencing would not be an issue. And I think I read in some of the documents that the fencing would be provided by the federal government. We would have to do the labor on it.
And maintain it, yes.
Yes, yes.
And it is written in the law currently that way, where the fence is there, so that would have to be changed at the same time as the 433 is added.
Okay, all right. Go ahead.
Supervisor Sabatier?
Yeah, so in the letter that we received, I think not from Middletown Rancheria, but from Thompson's office, in order to pass it on to Middletown Rancheria, so even if that ends up being the case, don't we need to still say yes because we're a pass-through? Or do we say no today and still have the ability to be a pass-through? Like, I feel like there's a need to still say yes in the sense that no matter which direction we decide to go, that I believe we're being used as a pass-through. I
Not
mean,
anymore, not any longer.
has that
Has
changed?
that changed?
Yes.
Okay, so Thompson's letter has been revised and, not revised, but like what the statements were in that letter, it's been revised and updated that we don't need to?
The way it is currently written in law, it would still function that way, where if we receive the property, we would be a pass-through to the tribe for the 733 acres. Since a year ago, when we tried to bring that to your board before, they have gone another direction where they were talking about going outside of the county, meaning a direct to the tribe. And I don't know where that stands.
So I was given information in discussions with admin that had changed somewhere in February where the county wouldn't be a pass-through agency, but I don't have the law on that, but that's what I was told, that there was a provision that wouldn't require the county to be a pass-through. Go ahead.
So just to finish off, and I appreciate that, I'm only going with what I know based on the letters. I do know that obviously there was a no response from the county, then there was a long standstill. Obviously the tribe took interest, which I understand why. They gave their reasons on their letters. I know that I since have heard of some potential activities that could occur based on conversations with Supervisor Owen. I'm feeling a little nervous about taking ownership of a piece of land that has, I mean, I don't mean to put it in this way, but with all the fires that we have and everything, I just see that as a potential liability. We have to work and making sure that it's safe out there. I would like to see if there's can we meet with Middletown Rancheria? Because I think that's an important conversation to have. And is it possible to look at a way, I guess it's maybe it has happened that way, I guess I've never thought of it that way, but like a reverse co-management where the tribe does own the land and we work on an agreement of what that land could be used for based on certain activities that I know have been brought up. My guess is there might be interest. I worry about the liability of taking it on, but I also like the concepts that have been thrown around, and I think until there's a discussion, that there's really, that we're just talking without any reception at this moment in time, and I would like to open up that dialogue.
Go ahead and let them, and then I'll.
Vice Chair.
Yeah, I don't know of any potential uses or ideas, but it is a lot to take on, and we're stretched pretty thin right now trying to manage projects that we have and properties that we have and building parks, and there's a lot of ongoing projects. So, you know, I know that the tribe is very interested in this, and I don't know that we have a plan, and I'm in favor of just stating that we don't, you know, agreeing with past board's decision.
Okay. I was hoping we could just stop it right there. Let me put on my glasses. I had went independently and tried to speak with a number of different entities such as emergency services, law enforcement, veterans, to see if there was interest in that. And I know that there was hesitation. They didn't want to get crossways of Congressman Thompson or of the tribe. Once they found out that there was interest there. However, I think that this would be a great opportunity for us to have a emergency services training facility, and where they can train and certify dozer operators, hand crews, do search and rescue, et cetera, et cetera. I did get some letters pertaining to that. Again, they don't want to get crossways of anybody. I just think that, personally, I work for the people of Lake County, and I need to do what is in the best interest of the people of Lake County. And that's where my loyalties are going to lie. And I do not want to give away something that could benefit us all in the future. I think, just so you know, when I became aware of this, the Coast Guard becoming available was in March, 2 months after I had been sworn in as the supervisor. And I was asked by CIO Parker and a couple of others to sign some paper to be a pass-through and to give it to the tribe. And I had said no, and they did not know at the time that there might be some kind of nefarious contaminants on the ground. And I had also made that clear that I had heard that rumor, do not know if it's true. About maybe 15 minutes later, I had our county council come in with a couple more people and again asked me to sign it again, and again I refused. I have seen that, I do know that there was some documents that are disclosed in here where our county supervisor was wearing the hat as a supervisor and as the tribal chair, that signed a letter as the tribal chair to acquire this land. On March 17th of this year, I had mentioned it Tara was here, and they were talking about training centers and stewardship. And I had made the comment that I'm working on hoping to be able to get us a center for being able to train. And when I walked out of this door after that item, I was confronted and told not to speak about it publicly again, that they didn't think that was going to come forward. This is not okay. It's bullying, and I really didn't appreciate it. Once again, I will stand for the people of Lake County, and I do believe that we do have a use for it. And I know that the veterans are one that would like to use it. At one time, there was a veterans station down there for people to get away and go fishing, and I would like to see them to be able to use that again for that. Right now, currently, the grand jury has an investigation open on it. And I also have found out recently that the military, U.S. military, is considering reinstating and upgrading our Loran. It would be E-Loran instead of Loran C. It's a new technology, because if there's any spoofing or jamming of satellites, we're going to be in a world of hurt. So I would like to make sure that they will have access to this location if need be in the future. And so that's another reason I really do not want to give it away. If we need that location again, when it was open, they were talking to and communicating with ships and airlines or airplanes up around the North Pole, where communications from satellites did not reach. So they shut that down, and they are looking at currently, and you can look it up online, reinstating the Loran system at this time. And so that's important. Go ahead.
Anything further?
No, I do have a meeting scheduled with Mr. Thompson, And I also want to bring it to the Middletown Town Hall. They are the Middletown Advisory Committee, and I would like them to have some input as well. That's why I really didn't want to go down this road as far as what the destination is going to be on it. I really just wanted to say, yes, we had interest, and we would like to let them know that. We did not want to take on a hot site, so if there was anything, they needed to clean that up. Other than that, I would really like to be able to have the destination, the final decision to be taken up at another time. Thank you.
Okay, Supervisor Crandall.
As mentioned about the cleanup, as a person that has the Superfund site in my district, it's, as you can see, that thing's taken quite some time for the government to deal with that, federal government to deal with that. With the tribe taking it over, it's highly likely that they'll get, access to funding before anyone else would. They have their own EPA department who's linked right in. I think the situation that the congressman put us in is, or his letter basically said he wants to give it to the tribe. He wanted it to be a pass-through. I'm willing to go that route. I think the land dates to the tribe as it is, and so for me, I think it's the perfect situation to just, designate it to the tribe.
All right, well, I want to hear from the public, but Mike, did you have another question? Or-
I had, there was also comment in some of the prior documents about selling it, which again would behoove the government, our county, if we sold it and put it back on the tax rolls. So there's more than one way we can go with this, and I think a conversation should be had rather than it being knee-jerk. Thank you.
All right, my comment at this point, I've heard some of those ideas, and those are not bad ideas. The problem I have with this right now is this potentially been going on since 1996, and back in 2014, at least back to 2014, there's been active discussions with the Middletown Rancheria, and we had a legal action of a board in 2016 that declined to take the property, and then it was told to someone else, that being the tribe, that they could get access to that property. So that's where I have a concern right now, because for 10 years they've been told they could have it. So that's one concern I have. Is there anything else from the?
I have one more thing.
Yeah.
This land was acquisitioned, I believe, from Mrs. Boucher. So I know one of the people that were interested in purchasing it lived next door, and it was part of his ranch that was acquisitioned by the military.
Okay. Thank you. Supervisor Sabatier?
That name rang a bell. I was just on that street called Boucher, so I'm guessing it's probably named after that person. Again, I think for some reason it's not similar, but to the 2008 general plan thing, like just because something was done doesn't mean we can't review it, but in reviewing it, I don't think we're in a position to take on this situation. I still think that there's a potential opportunity for partnership and collaboration, and why not have those conversations? I think that the more we have partnerships and collaboration, the more we build our relationships, and if there's nothing that we can agree on and find, then that's fine too. I don't think that the county is in a position to take on the land, but I think we are in a position to have conversations, and again, I think those are healthy things to have conversations about. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, but yeah, that's where I am at this moment in time.
Well, and I would have a question too. How much would that cost the county? What all do?
Those are all conversations, absolutely.
Yeah, and I don't know, but anyway, unless there's, did you have further?
Nope.
Okay. Then I'll go ahead and open it up to the public. And I think we'll, how many folks do we have online? 2? I'm going to go ahead and start this one online. Moke Simon? Okay. Mr. Simon, if you could unmute and state your name for the record, you'll have 3 minutes.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. I want to thank you, Board of Supervisors, for giving me an opportunity to speak. I do apologize I can't be there in the hall with you today, but I do have representatives from the Middletown Rancheria and our tribal council. I think I see Mike Rivera, Luya Rivera, and Christina Lord, and also a tribal elder. If I missed anybody else from Middletown, greatly appreciate everyone's participation there in person. I just wanted to start off with the comment of this is not a new conversation. This is a 174-year-old conversation for the Middletown Rancheria people of Pomo Indians of California. In 1851, we signed a treaty with the federal government right there on those lands at Oleomi, one of our oldest villages, which is a part of this valley. There are even dates scratched 1867 when we were completely to be removed off of the property by the cavalry. There were rocks on the ground. This is a portion of our original village. We've worked diligently since it was decommissioned with the federal government to get this back in our possession. Now we have an opportunity to get all 1,200 acres under the control of the Middletown Rancheria. And this is a very important, most important project that we have going on. The acquisition of tribal lands for non-tribal use has been devastating to the culture and the communities of our tribe. This is a great opportunity for this board to make a decision, just as they did in 2016, to have these lands committed back to the Middletown Rancheria. We've been working diligently with the federal government. This is just another step for us to have checked off of the box. We don't need a response. Actually, if you'll wait till 2015 or May 15th, not say anything and change your response, that property would then begin to be moved towards a federal transfer to the Middletown Rancheria in its whole. This is a process that we have worked diligently with our attorneys, our lobbyists, and also Mike Thompson, our congressman. So today I ask you to please either don't have any vote or response for the GSA, or the response is that your position does not change on the vote that was taken by the previous board in 2016. What that'll allow to do is the next process where this would be put into excess property as the full 1,200 acres are put together and then transferred directly to the tribe so it can be in trust. Once it's in trust, the Middletown Rancheria is a part of this community. I'm a voting member in Lake County. I am a county constituent. I've sat at those boards. I've sat on that diocese directly. I've won 2 elections and did that and served this community. The tribe now has an opportunity to work with Lake County to restore history, to restore wrongs that have been done in the past, and to start to heal and move forward together. If we've proven anything since the Valley Fire as a tribe, we're not only community members as a whole as a tribe, but this entire community of Lake County is a piece of us, and we will always work together. If there are conversations once this land is in the trust that the county would like to have, we are completely on board with that. We work directly with Tara. We work directly with the federal government and opportunities to be here, and we actually are doing everything that we can to acquire what we can back of our original villages that set throughout the Gwinnett Valley, the Coyote Valley, all the way up.
Mr. Simon, just FYI, I've given you, if you could wrap up, I've given you.
Okay,
extra.
that was my 3 minutes. I apologize.
Okay.
Today, we're looking for a vote. It's 174 years waiting to come through. Hopefully, it can stay in the same stance. So I'll be here and available, and I know that we have other Middletown members there in the room. Thank you very much, board, for what you do and all the hard work that you put in. Greatly appreciate it.
Yes, and thank you. I did let you go past, so I wanted to make sure you had sufficient time, but that's okay. Thank you. And who do we have on? Elizabeth, you can unmute and you'll have 3. Well, I'll give equal time to everybody. Mr. Simon had about 3.5 minutes. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, this is Elizabeth Larson with Lake County News. I have a couple of questions. We're talking about history. And in speaking with previous county staff, at one point, the county did want the property, and actually Congressman Thompson was doing the legislation to make that possible. So I'm curious to know if there has been an up-to-date conversation with Congressman Thompson about possibilities. So it sounds to me like there's also not been a formal discussion with the tribe. It seems like it doesn't, I'm not sure why you would wait until after the property is transferred to have that conversation. It seems like that should happen ahead of time. So I'm not sure. Has there not been a formal discussion? And why not have a community conversation with math, as Supervisor Owen has suggested, because math has been in existence now for almost 20 years. It's been a very effective local government body. And I think that it would make sense to have everybody brought into the conversation, especially if there's a possibility to do a fire protection project out there. And I would also like somebody to answer, why is Supervisor Owen being bullied about this? Why is she not being heard about the matters in her own district? There's always been a priority put on that. Each supervisor is supposed to have some respect about what they want to do in their in their district. And she's talking about being bullied. That's a pretty significant allegation. And I'd like somebody to answer that. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else online? Larry, if you could state your name, you'll have about 3.5 minutes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good afternoon, Board of Supervisors. Thank you for the time. My name is Larry Galupe. I'm Vice Chairman of Middletown Rancheria. I'm also, I live here in Middletown Rancheria. I live here in Middletown. I've been a very active member of Middletown community. I have served now as an elected official for my tribe for 3 years now, but I've been on several boards here in Middletown, Lake County TID, Lake County Wine Association. I've been attending math meetings for a very long time. I just follow in the footsteps and what the speech of my chairman, Moke Simon, had just said. This has been an ongoing issue for a long time. I'm just going to stop there, and I appreciate your time. And I see other members of my tribe's council and one of our tribal elders in the audience today, so maybe they have words to say also. So thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you, Larry. Do we have anyone else online? Okay. And we'll move to the room. And who wants to speak in the room? If you could state your name for the record.
Good afternoon, Board of Supervisors. Mike Rivera, Tribal Council Representative for Middletown Rancheria. I was a previous Tribal Historic Preservation Officer. As our chairman said, that land was part of Oleomi. It was one of our villages there in Coyote Valley. We were there for thousands of years. It's a significance to the tribe. You know, our ancestors used to steward the land, so that's not a problem there. We're able to take care of it, but as he said, you know, it's been trying to get our land back and trying to get, you know, for our people, for my children. And I'd just like to say, you know, thanks again for your time and your consideration in this matter, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Honorable Board. My name is Luya Rivera. I'm the elected Tribal Council Secretary for Middletown Rancheria. I thank you for your time and attention to the item of the congressional transfer of the long decommissioned Loran Station, known to our tribe as ancestral lands. As has been established and acknowledged publicly by the governor in 2019, due to the history of the United States government's efforts to eradicate tribal people across the land, tribes must work tirelessly to regain our ancestral sites, including our sacred places, our ceremonial lands, our burial and birthplaces. Middletown Rancheria specifically has continued the process to regain the Loran Station, coming on 25 years. This work has been overseen by the elders of our tribe, including my father, who worked as a tribal monitor and gave direction to the next generations to continue to reestablish tribal ancestral lands. While he has since passed in 2013, his grandchildren will know of his efforts and the tribe's. Middletown Rancheria understands the requirements and responsibilities of land stewardship and has demonstrated such through our partnerships and collaborations with many agencies, including tribal, federal, state, county, and NGOs. Middletown Rancheria has worked on air quality, climate, and fire protection initiatives in Lake County in many capacities. We reiterate the process and the importance of this land to our tribe. Again, this is not a new idea. More than enough time has gone by that the county has not expressed an interest, and our tribe continues to remain a pillar in our community. The health, safety, education, and land stewardship efforts of our tribe will continue, directly benefiting the whole community. With respect to the congressional intent to transfer the long decommissioned Loran Station, our tribe thanks the county in understanding ancestral land return and tribal sovereignty and true community strengthening. Thank you.
Thank you. Next in the room.
Hello, Board of Supervisors. My name is Christina Lord. I'm a tribal leader of the Middletown Rancheria and a native of the Middletown community. I'm here today to speak on the Loran Station property in Middletown. The land is not just another parcel. It is part of their tribe's ancestral territory and holds deep cultural, historical, and spiritual significance to our people. It includes areas used for ceremony and has long supported our traditional way of life. Although the property was later used by the federal government, it was never truly separated from our connection for it. Today, we are asking for a path forward, one that recognizes our history and respects our continued connection to this land. We are committed to ensuring the protection and preservation of this important site for future generations. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room? Come forward. You'll be next, Mr. Mayo, after.
Can I pass these out?
You can hand them to the, yeah, Supervisor Sabatier.
I'm going to be reading.
Thank you.
Please state your name for the record. And
Hi, good afternoon, Chair Rasmussen and members of the board. My name is Elizabeth Kershaw. I'm a 25-year resident of Middletown and a board member of MAF, the Middletown Area Town Hall Advisory Committee. It has recently been brought to my attention that there may be some discussion about transferring the ownership of the now defunct U.S. Coast Guard Loran Station in Middletown from the federal government into the hands of the County of Lake. An opportunity like this is an amazing blessing, and it doesn't happen very often. When a portion of land as large as this, located near a significant population, can benefit as a gift as attractive as this. The total area comprises of approximately 1,200 acres and is directly adjacent to Hidden Valley Lakes and Hidden Valley Rancho subdivisions. And it has access to a main highway, it has power, it has water, it has buildings and much more. What an incredible opportunity we have for this land to benefit nearly 10,000 residents in the southern part of the county. I understand that the local Indian tribe is interested in having the ownership of this land transferred into their tribe. I honor and appreciate the Native population and their history and contribution to our area, but I am certain that any decision that pertains to ownership and use of this land and how it can benefit the population of a whole needs to be carefully and fairly addressed. As a member of the MAF board, I would like to have the opportunity to bring this issue to our constituents, allowing for extensive discussions within our community to gather feedback, suggestions, visions, and plans, and best how to utilize this tremendous opportunity. At this point, only a handful of people are privy to this conversation. I guarantee you the residents would be very disappointed if they were not involved in the decision-making process. Decisions of this magnitude and that impact residents must be above board, transparent, with open discussions available to all residents, especially those who live within the proximity of the said area. As you are aware, our county has lots of obstacles to overcome: high poverty rate, lack of available employment, affordable housing, lack of youth programs for at-risk populations, just to name a few. I can only imagine how a piece of land with its generous resources could improve the quality of life for the county residents. The open space, the beautiful views, the room to create recreational outlets, as well as incorporating the needs of veterans, senior citizens, emergency heating and cooling stations during PSPS events, community gatherings, outdoor sports complexes, and youth centers, to name a few. I strongly urge you to hold off making any decisions until the time and resources have been provided to adequately inform the public in a responsible and legal and fair manner. Thank you for your support.
Thank you. Mr. Mayo, come forward. Okay, do you need help with the mic? Can you get it?
He doesn't need any help.
Didn't look like it. Yeah.
Members of the Board of Supervisors, my name is Rick Mayo. I've been a 50-year resident of Lake County in the South Shore mostly, and I'm a Vietnam Army veteran. We serve veterans of Lake County, California. We didn't exactly, we had heard about this in 2025, but given light to all of the information that has been provided here today, we are more or less on the collaboration end of it for places for our veterans here in Lake County, both Native American and the rest of us, to be able to have a place where we can go and our families can have fun and they can, you know, have some, educational issues. They come up and they could learn a lot from everything that from this piece of land. So, you know, in light of all of the information that was provided here, which much of it we didn't have a clue that all of this have been going on for years, dealing with that station out there, the Coast Guard station. In the 50 years I've been here, I have never been out there to that piece of land. I've seen the sign going and coming, but had never ventured out there to view it until this issue came up. So whenever the county decides exactly what's going to happen to the piece of land out there, the veterans, Lake County Veterans Organizations would like to be a part of being able to utilize some of those facilities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayo. Do we have anyone else in the room who wishes to provide public input?
I'm just Charlie today. Okay, nothing else. When I was pulled off a helicopter in Missoula, somebody was there. He didn't care who I was, what color I was, what religion I was. He got me off the helicopter, all right? And I lived, and I went forward. And I'm grateful for a screaming eagle that helped me, okay? This is a really hard situation. I've got a minor in Native American Studies. I know the history. It's ugly. It's really ugly. And I know the county. The county can't police anything. They don't have enough people to go around and inspect stuff. It's just a fantasy. We find that every time I come here for cannabis. We just don't have the people to do stuff, okay? This tribe has a constitution, and that constitution says they're going to take care of the land. They're going to be good stewards, okay? I walked away from math because I was really on the position that I wanted to be part of a good stewardship and not a bad stewardship. I resigned from math, okay? Math can make a decision. I'll be at the meetings. I can do more better than not. But what we have to know is when the shit hit the fan, when VA threw us under the bus, when I needed help the most for PTSD, I was still on active duty wearing this fucking hat. Sorry. I came here because I didn't want to lose. I didn't want to lose my my top secret clearance. So I drove all the way to Lakeport to get meetings. You know where I got meetings? I didn't get it at VA. I didn't get it with anybody. I got it at Tribal Health because the tribes understand community. They understand that when a bunch of people come together, it doesn't matter what they are, they're one team, they're one tribe. For 3 years, when we didn't have a PTSD group and people like EJ had to come forward, EJ and Moak were the only ones who came forward and said, hey, we're going to make this happen because you are a tribe. For 3 years, when I gave PTSD meetings and I helped these guys through all their crap, there was a book I used. It's called Tribe, okay? And we are no different as veterans than any other tribe, okay? We need a sense of community and we need a sense of healing. My grandmother and my grandparents, they're all Creek Indians. They all said, baby, go out in the backyard and stomp it out. You've got to go out and do something. And that's what they do. We don't have a successful way of healing. They do. And they've stomped this thing out for 174 years. It's time for all of us to come together and stomp. In Oklahoma, I can go to Oklahoma and I can do a stomp, and I can stomp for as many hours as possible to get all the ugly out of me, and I can be healthy again. I would love to see the tribe get this land and offer it to all the veterans to stomp it out. And if you don't know what stomping means, it just basically you stomp and stomp and stomp until you have no more energy anymore to deal with all that ugliness. That's all I got.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room?
Good afternoon, Chair. Tom Lasik. I'm very sensitive to the injustice that we all hear about, not just with what goes on in this county, but other parts. I'm totally okay and actually support the tribe getting its lands back. I have land in the Lakota Nation that if I ever, it's not my land yet, but when it is, it'll go back. But my issue is the process. It really bothers me that there was a lot of behind the scenes, and for lack of better words, skullduggery, to try to make influences without it being transparent. And I find that to be despicable. I think what Supervisor Sabatier asked for is a conversation. Elizabeth Larson asked the question in public comment about having the conversation. Supervisor Owen asked about having the conversation, and I think that's the right thing to do. I think the right thing will probably end up in some form or fashion with the tribe being reconnected with land that it lost. And I think that's critical. But it's got to be done the right way. And my biggest objection, especially seeing things happen in the last couple weeks, is the process and making sure it's not just the ends justify the means. You guys can do it the right way. To say, well, golly gee, you know, we have a lot of things going on, we'll just ignore it. Take this opportunity to tell the government that yes, you are interested as a county in this because you want to work together as a community to find the best use of this land. And I think that's all that Supervisor Owen is asking for. And I think when everyone comes together, because we all have our best intentions in mind, we will come up with the best decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room?
Paul Duncan, just wanted to speak on the part of support for the Middletown Rancheria and them. I have had many experiences with them, and they manage the land very well. They're great stewards of the land. They provide fuels clearing. We work all around there to maintain that safety. I see them carrying that out to the land that's currently out there in the Loran Station that's not maintained at all. So the 1,200 acres of land to manage when the county already struggles to maintain what we have is a concern for me, because I just don't see the ability to do that on the limited funds that we have and the limited personnel. And Middletown Rancheria is also a huge supporter of their community. I remember during the Valley Fire, they threw their doors open for the community and said, "What do you need?" And hosted, several people, including my family, after that. So huge supporter of that. I think to me that is what it means to be a community, is you all pull together and you make things happen. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room? He's got one coming.
Good afternoon. Thank you for listening to me. My name's Willie Long. I've only been up here 10 years. I'm the commander now at Canoctai 437 American Legions. I agree with what the fireman just said a minute ago, is that Middletown has opened their doors and been rather grateful to the community when the fires have hit. It's also far be it for me to be one that would, considering the history and the mistreatment that our Native Americans have had, to be on the side of removing land from them. But what I do see we can do is, why can't we sit down together and work out some kind of system to help both ends? That's a lot of land. There's a lot of things can be done with it, and we have a lot of things that we need. There is no facilities that we have right now up here that I've got to hand out to help the veterans. We have over 6,000 veterans up here in this county, and nobody's doing nothing other than some of these groups that these people belong to right here behind me. Whatever the final decision is that is made on this, I would like to see that the parties sit down, look at the people that can be helped by whatever becomes of the final decision, and see if they can work them in to the future of how this land is used and how it helps the people within this county. I think that would be the best foot forward. I think everybody would be happy with that. And instead of me or them, it would be we. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else in the room? Not seeing anyone. I'm going to go ahead and close public comment and bring it back to the board for further discussion or possible action. Do we have anything further?
Action or direction?
Action, or is it direction? Yeah, direction to staff. You have your hand up?
Just final comment. I appreciate all the words. And I think that we don't hold the cards in this situation to make any requests. We all know of things that the county currently owns that we need to do better in stewarding or upgrading or maintaining. And so to say that we should say yes, I think gives me pause and concern. I appreciate the potential for the vision, but I think that we have a partner in our communities that wants to do the right thing, has shown to do the right thing, and has participated in collaboration. And I hope that we can continue the conversation, post this conversation in a more personable way, to see how can we contribute to getting something we all would like to see, and what is it that you would like to see, and let's go from there. Because I think that's the way that I would like to approach the city of Clear Lake. That's like the way that I would like to approach the city of Lakeport, and that is the way that I would like to approach any of the tribes, because we should be looking for successes for all of us, and not just who owns the successes, and who owns the land or who's running the program. To me, it's about how are we doing and how can we help each other to get to where we're going. So I think today is I mean, there was some comments. This was a letter we received on March 16th. Yes, we could have had an earlier conversation from letters we received all the way back in 2024. That did not occur. But I don't believe there's going to be a reversal, and granted, sometimes the federal government seems to reverse its course quickly, but I would like to believe that that's not what we're going to see. And so let's figure out a way forward. And I think the way forward is laid out for us to easily take on, and hoping that we can engage in that conversation and go from there.
Go ahead, Supervisor Crandall.
I know that Chairman Simon was online, and he said if there's any questions that we can ask him one. Do you think that's possible if
Yes.
he's still on?
Chairman, are you still there? He's, okay, can you? Okay, you can unmute Chair Simon.
Yeah,
And
I'm here. Can you hear me?
yeah, did you hear that question?
I have a question, Chair Simon. We have veterans here that they are looking for an area to serve 6,000 veterans. Well, not 6,000 veterans, but whoever the amount, the great amount, whoever needs the help. I'm not sure exactly, where this lands, and when it goes to where it goes the direction that you said. If it goes to the direct distribution to you from the federal government, even if that happens, let's say hypothetically that happens, would the tribe be willing to talk with this group of veterans, if that's the case, and even if it's the case in any capacity? I just wanted to throw that out there because they're here. They seem to all want to work together. We've heard a couple of veterans that have talked about supporting the tribe as well. So I just wanted to pose the question as I heard it offered and mentioned anyhow.
So, direct answer to your question is we support the veterans in Lake County. We also have 13 veterans buried in our cemetery. I'll be reading their names at the Memorial Day ceremony in Middletown. So we have veterans too that are on our rancher. We don't have any living veterans. Our last one passed 3 years ago, Brad Knight, at this point. So getting the property directly turned over to the tribe, we're willing to have any conversation with the veterans or even the county as we move forward with the development of this property. It is for our tribal members, and ultimately, we are always open to having conversations with the community, just as we do with all of our evacuation shelters and other things. This is going to be a process. I know you think this is just one decision that needs to be followed through with the federal government. This is going to be a long process. As I said, it's been going on for 26 years here and 174 years before. So we would definitely be able to sit down with any organization once the transfer happens and have discussions. And also with the county, and just informing the county on what we're doing as far as archaeological surveys, treatment of the properties. We have a very close relationship with Terra and all of these organizations that we work with. So simple answer is yes, we'd be willing down the road, once it's in our control, to have conversation with the veterans of Lake County.
Thank you. So I'm thinking, how does that look if we were to have our own conversation and it's still, let's say it went the other route, and then we're working with the agency? I'm trying to get a trajectory here, so that we have an idea of a roadmap how this would work. I'm thinking in my head it might work to the veterans' benefit if the tribe gets it and works with them, because the less constrictions when it comes to federal trust and whatnot. But then again, I don't know. So I don't know how the process commonly works when it comes to the county taking over and then passing it through. You know, so I'm just kind of just brainstorming, if that makes sense.
I mean, I'll say this, and I'm gonna, it's a very cold-hearted remark. There are very specific expectations if we say yes. And not that I want the tribe to take on those expectations, but they're saying they want to take care of that, of the expectations,
Right.
because those were the same expectations set for whoever the land was going to. I don't think we're in a position to meet those expectations. And so to me, it's not a valid option in my mind. And that's just where I am.
Which is not a valid option.
To say yes to saying we want to take on this land.
Thank you.
And then potentially pass it through. Because even if we pass it through, I feel like we're saying yes to the expectations, and what's the timeline for passing it through? And I just don't want to be held on expectations that I don't believe that as a county we can meet at this moment in time.
So you're saying that if we accept it, either way, in your mind, accepting it is a burden as it is, regardless of where it goes?
Yes, that is even more cold-hearted than what I thought I was going to say. But yes, it's a burden and we don't want to take it on.
And that's the issue that I have. I mean, I don't think we have the budget to deal with that property. I appreciate the ideas, and those are great ideas, but then going back to the other issue, I mean, our board legally in 2016 dealt with this issue and had a vote in front of the public that said, we don't want the land. And the tribe, Middletown Rancheria, was told they could have it for the past at least 12 years that I can calculate, 10 or 12 years. And I just have a problem trying to get in the middle of that. That's where I sit. Plus, if we did take it, you know, we have the extreme cost, but the tribe has said they're willing to deal with that.
May I add something?
Yes, go ahead, please.
What I had envisioned, first of all, going back to 2014, it was never brought to the public. It was never brought to math. It was never brought to the veterans. It was not brought to emergency services. There really wasn't a deep dive into whether it could serve the betterment of the entire community. When I was first asked to sign the paperwork in March, two months after I had taken office, I was drinking from a fire hose. I couldn't deal with that too. I was trying to deal with what was in front of me. I put it off for a few months and thought about it. And then opportunity kind of came up where I started thinking, how can this better support the entire county? Is there a way? And I started checking with fire personnel. I went to the chief's meeting in December. Before that, I had talked to some people and took them on tours. And it appeared that there was not a training center for dozer operators or for hand crews and for some others in the community, in our county, to be able to support our fire departments. I also checked with our law enforcement to see if it could be used for for training for search and rescue, for drones, for anything. And they said, yeah, absolutely. Nobody had the intention of getting sideways, and everybody was afraid of getting sideways. So often when I gave that question, I first asked if they could benefit from it, because I wanted honest answers. I didn't want a marshmallow backbone saying, ooh, they don't want to get sideways from somebody. And then I would come forth and tell them that there was also other interest. I've also had a number of conversations. I also spoke with the veterans to see if they had use for it. I knew there had been a veterans cabin or a serviceman's cabin down there by the creek, which had burned down. and there's a great fishing spot down there. There's also like about a 10,000 square foot, it's basically like a bomb shelter that's there that was used for it's a huge building, all concrete. The walls are feet thick. And I also always had that in the back of my mind that I was worried if we ever needed it back for communications. And it just so happened to be that that's coming forward again right now. As far as military goes for a Loran station, not necessarily that one, they haven't gotten that deep in. I've also had conversations with Mr. Sabatier about doing partnerships and working with the tribe as well. I wanted to put all this on back burner until we stated yes, we wanted it. I'm not the same supervisor that was sitting in the seat back in 2014, and I felt like I needed to do my due diligence to see if the county could benefit, and that was where I was coming from. I also had mentioned it again, as I said earlier, to Tara for training as well. I wasn't trying to cut people out, but include more of the county, because it is the full county that I do represent. As far as the clearing and stuff, if the fire personnel and there was others that wanted to use it for training, that was going to take care of a lot of the brush that's out there currently. If the Tara used it for control burns, so I was looking at working with entities, but all entities, as many as needed it to make it asset for the county. And at one point, some people were mentioning that because we don't have those opportunities for training here right now, that we may be able to host some of the other counties as well for training, which would of course help our economy. So I was looking at it as a big picture. So that's where I am on it. That's where I'll stay on it, because again, I represent everybody. It looks like I do not have the numbers, and that's kind of a sad thing. I know I had talked to Mr. Lars Hewing about it as well, but we never got out there to take a tour to see what he thought. But I did speak to a number of different people, and it looked like it could be a benefit to the entire county. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't recall which was first.
Go ahead.
So this is a decades-old conversation, and it did come to the public in 2016, and that's when the board did vote on it. And the District 1 supervisor at that time really agreed with this, because at the time, the estimated cost was $55,000, which we know that's much greater now. And we're not being asked to do a pass-through. We're being asked if we want it or not. And we don't have a plan, and I appreciate your ideas, they're really good ideas, and maybe we could find a different location that's a less sensitive area. This is a highly sensitive area. There might be a better location for a training site. So when this board made this decision in 2016, Congressman Thompson started working with the tribe. And I don't see any reason to step in now and say we have interest in this property when we don't have any shovel-ready plans. We don't have any plans right now. So I'm good with continuing with the last board's decision and allowing Congressman Thompson to further the work that he's been doing with the tribe and that partnership.
Supervisor Crandall.
Well, she said it was on the agenda in 2016, and I know that math was in existence back then. I know that my town halls are pretty in tune with the agenda items that are covering areas in their jurisdiction, so I'm pretty sure this either went to math or it was known by the group. So I know that it was on the, I'm just seeing now that it's on the agenda. Well, not seeing now, but I'm just looking at the memo where it shows it was brought to the board. So it was noticed and even put out in a meeting, so.
All right, go ahead, Supervisor Sabatier.
I just want to speak about two more things. One, there was a public comment about bullying, and I feel I need to at least make a statement. I'm going to say very sarcastically, I don't believe any of my colleagues have ever been bullied by anybody, period, by being in the position that you're in. Everybody's really nice. Everybody's really free-spirited about everything. Unfortunately,
Oh, by staff?
no, no.
In
just,
general?
Just in general, because that was not a statement that was made necessarily about staff. There was other people in the group that she walked out with. I think there's also times where staff are put in a bind, where awkward positions are created. But unless I misunderstood, I wish it would go away, but I think it just comes with the job of dealing with that. And I know Supervisor Owen, and as she said, not a marshmallow spine. That's not what you have, and I apologize that you have to endure with that, but unfortunately, I think it just comes with the territory, and probably getting worse rather than getting better. But it also depends on the topic that we're discussing, because, I mean, can we go to earlier agenda items? And like, no comments came about that. So it feels very strange to hear that. I feel I needed to push back. On the other side, I know that, goodness, I was going to say Supervisor. Chair Simon is a big fan of our first responders, and if there is an opportunity, then I think that he will probably want to take that opportunity because he has good relationships and wants to see them have access to the things that they are looking to do. And so I don't think it's going to fall on deaf ears. I'm not saying anything is possible because I don't know any specifics of the land. But I think that the opportunity, if the opportunity is there, I don't see Chair Simon as just throwing it away and saying absolutely not. So that's just my final comments, and I'm ready to move forward and saying that at this moment in time, we'll continue what our previous boards had said.
I probably regret saying this, but I wish Laco News cared about me being bullied because.
All right, I think we're ready for direction. This is just direction, right? Yeah. I'm not in favor of changing the previous board's decision. It sounds like we have consensus in that direction. Yeah, go ahead.
One final comment. I wish we were better prepared to say we could do something here. And I hope that we will change that in the near future. Because we should have potential land available and saying, we have a project in mind, but like, I want us to be in a better position because that is not a good space to be in.
We do have a lot of big projects happening. We have really big projects in, like the Klaus Park. Like, we have big projects, and it takes a lot of resources and a lot of time and energy, and we're focused on those projects and doing the best that we can there.
Right, I don't believe it, go ahead.
Do you mind directing staff to either send the letter or not to GSA specifically?
Yeah, so based on the consensus I've seen, I put the question in front of the board that, do we agree with sending a letter saying that we're not interested in changing our decision from 2016?
I prefer a letter than no letter.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you've got direction to do that.
Thank you.
And that will conclude this item. And with that, I'm going to take a break, short break. You guys okay with that? No, not at all. No, I got 3 more to do. our meeting back to order. We're good, Jaden? Yeah, okay. And I'm going to go to our 6.12 item, which is consideration of a resolution increasing reserve cancellation, making additional funding available for Robin Lane sewage release, event response by amending Resolution 2609 and Resolution 2608, amending Resolution 25-118, adopting final budget for fiscal year 2025-2026 to cancel $250,000 in reserve designations in disaster response and recovery fund 110. This is the sheriff and the admin office you're going to handle. Go ahead.
Stephen Carter, Assistant County Administrative Officer. That was a really long title. It expresses most of what the item is. So we started with $750,000 and came back to your board to make it 1.75. And the expenses so far, known expenses that we've already paid out is $1,568,000 and some change. And the additional known costs are a little over $191,000, which puts us over the $1.75 million. And to be honest with you, I know of some numbers that are not included here, so we're pretty hopeful that the $250,000 requested increase is enough to cover the remaining installs, water testing, and everything related to this disaster. So that's what we're requesting, is to increase the overall allowance reserve adjustment by $250,000 for this disaster.
Okay, now that we're starting to get all the bells on this, so we have a decent idea that
they're trickling down, but they're slowing down, but we are still receiving some that bills, like we just received one today from an install. So it is still trickling in, but it's not done. We're just slowing down enough to where we can theoretically, we have a grasp on what it's going to cost overall.
Okay. Supervisor Sabatier?
So, obviously this needs to happen, so that's not my reason for the comment. Absolutely approve of doing this. I know that I'll be having a conversation with Incident Command. There was a protest on Saturday in front of the Special District's office. I did go there not to join the protest, but just to talk to people in case they needed to ask questions or let me know their concerns. I do have a list of concerns that I want to have a conversation about. What does the ending look like? Because there was some conversations that occurred at the very beginning that haven't really been spoken of since the beginning. Obviously, there's been a focus on getting certain things done and accomplished in order to get to the end. But I just want to make sure that we have these conversations, and then there's some obviously little concerns that just a conversation to see where we're at. But it's not easy. There's obviously an impact for those that are still living there, still dealing with this, even after the release and being told that their water is good to drink. So I wanted to at least express that, and for time's sake, I had planned with more questions. What I would like to know is, and thank you very much, I know at one point you did send me the list of what has been paid for thus far. I think it's important for the board to not just know the total amount, but what are we paying for? What exactly was paid for? I know that recently more light bulbs and more filters were provided. I was surprised about that, but those things seem to be additional things. And so I think it's good for the board to be aware of certain details rather than just a grand scheme of how much.
Then quickly on just that one specific note, it was determined by IC that we would give 2 filters and 1 UV bulb replacement, because that would theoretically last at least another year before you. So it like doubled the life of the unit, and it was not twice as expensive kind of thing.
So that was a total of 3 filters and 2 bulbs for each
2
system.
extra filters and 1 extra bulb, and then the whole unit put together already.
Okay. Anything further? Okay.
And that was relatively cheap overall for, And I can send the spreadsheet if the board would like, an informational only with the breakdown of the cost so far.
Well, I think that'd be helpful to see. I mean, I don't know what,
Since Budget Unit 1920 took over,
what is
though.
that? Yeah, I don't know what they all are, so I wouldn't mind seeing it.
Dakota,
do we
would you
have-
please send that? Thank you.
Do we have any other questions right now before I open this to the public? I'll go ahead and open it to the public. Do we have anybody in the room? Not seeing anyone online? No hands? Cassandra, if you could state your name for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Hello, Board. Cassandra here. I'm here as a resident directly impacted by the Robin Lane sewer spill. Today marks 100 days since January 11, 100 days since millions of gallons of sewage entered our community into the ground and into the water that many of us rely on every day. After 100 days, we're still asking these basic questions. Is our water safe? What exactly happened? How is this response being managed? At the same time, many of us are still paying out of pocket. We're paying for water, we're paying for additional filtration, we're paying for self-mitigation and for damage to systems like softeners that have been ruined by the event. Today, you're considering another $250,000, bringing the total to $2 million. To be clear, I'm not here to oppose that funding. Our community obviously needs those resources, and recovery is going to take time, but funding and accountability have to go together. Right now, residents have not been given a clear breakdown of how this initial $1.75 million has been spent. At the same time, we haven't been giving meaningful opportunities for direct engagement, no town halls where residents can ask questions and get answers. So we're showing up, not to create conflict, but because we're not being given access. After 100 days, transparency should not still be missing. We're asking for a balanced approach, continue the funding, but provide clear accounting. Continue the work, but include the community, please. We deserve to understand what's being done in our name with public funds in response to something that directly affects our health and our homes and our future. We deserve to be heard. And I think that 100 days is long enough to wait for answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Cassandra. Do we have anyone else online? Then I'm going to close public comment and bring it back to the board for action. Go ahead.
Just a quick question for Johanna, if you don't mind my putting you on the spot. Do we know when we're planning on bringing back the emergency declaration for the 5th of May? Is it possible to attach the spreadsheet to that item, since it's a continuation of the declaration, and having the spreadsheet to be transparent with where the money has been used? That way, it would be there. I'm trying to figure out how to place it on the agenda.
It'll be semi-generalized, but it'll say, like potable water, and then a number, and then testing a number.
I mean, that's been generalized when you submitted it to me. It wasn't based on an address or anything like that of where the money was spent. Yeah.
We can do that?
That would be my request,
Okay.
because it would be a good place to attach it, and then it would give the public the chance to review that.
We have consensus on that? Yeah.
Would that take care of Cassandra's questions?
I think there's probably a lot more that's combined with that, but I think it would be a good start there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Looks like we have consensus for that.
And if there's nothing further, Mr. Chair, I offer the resolution.
Resolution's been offered.
Supervisor Owen?
Yes.
Supervisor Sabatier?
Aye.
Supervisor Crandall?
Yes.
Supervisor Pyska?
Yes.
And Supervisor Rasmussen?
Aye. The motion carries 5-0. Now I'm going to move on to, let's go ahead and handle our 5.3 item. And was that, do you want to start that, Supervisor Sabatier?
Yes, and I got answers in my email, and
Hang on a second. I need to read that off, I believe. Sorry, I apologize. My fault. Approve participation agreement amendment number 3 between the County of Lake and the California Mental Health Services Authority, Cal MHSA, for the semi-statewide Enterprise Health Record EHR program, increasing maximum funding amount by $121,183.44 for a total amount not to exceed $1,650,000.00, and authorize the chair of the board to sign. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I had some questions, and just I'll be sincere. I did not get to this in a timely fashion to get an answer to my question timely. So I did get it this morning, and I should not have pulled this, and I'm ready to go ahead and move forward because the financial questions that I had were responded to.
Okay, no other questions from the board. I need to open it to the public. Is there anybody in the room? Not seeing anyone. Nobody online. Bring it back to the board for action.
Move to approve amendment number 3 between the County of Lake and California Mental Health Services Authority for the semi-statewide enterprise health record program, increasing the maximum funding amount by $121,183.44 for a total amount not to exceed $1,650,000, and authorize the chair of the board to sign.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion carries 5-0. Next, we're going to move on to our 5.10 with our tax collector, and this is confirmed notice of temporary office closure, treasurer tax collector's office from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. daily due to staffing. And we have tax collector Sullivan here. If you want to give us a quick synopsis of this item.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I can give a quick rundown of what the situation is. Our office has experienced a very high turnover, especially in our more entry-level positions. While at some points in time in the last year we have been fully staffed, we've been unable to retain them. We've had staff leave for higher paying positions in other departments. We've had staff leave. Often staff at this level are staff that may start a family, and so the county's health insurance has been problematic. So we've also lost staff there as well. So we're losing staff both to internal and external forces that our office just really doesn't have control over. We're doing another recruitment right now. We're going to try to hire 3, possibly 4 positions in the next few weeks, if we can do that, because we're essentially down to about 6 people. So that's our problem. If we have anyone call in sick, if we have anyone that's out in the field, we don't have enough people to cover multiple shifts for lunch and meals. So as needed, we're going to have to close.
Okay. We have questions from supervisors? Yes, go ahead, Supervisor Sabatier.
I hate this. I think that in speaking with Mr. Sullivan, so about 2 months ago, I do random checks to see what our vacancy list looks like. In February, you were at 100%. Right now, you're claiming to be at 30 to 40%, which is, fairly simple when you have a small team. When you lose one, you lose like 10%.
Yes.
So what's really unfortunate is that we've also approved adding a new position, and that's not helping if you can't even keep the positions that you have. I think that based on our conversation, there seems to be a deeper issue that is not going to be discussed here today, but what I'm asking for is how do we, you're our revenue stream. You being closed is even more impactful to us than certain other, but I also know that you're being very kind in asking, and other departments are already sometimes closed without letting us know they're going to be closed. So I'd like to look at what is our overall policy and what is your individual problem so that we can maybe have a meeting to figure out what the actual underlying problem is, because whether we close at 12 to 1, what's your situation of not getting to 50% tomorrow? That doesn't solve your problem that you're currently having. So I don't want to support any specific solution, but based on the explanation, there is a very specific problem that I want to make sure that we're attempting to do something about and not ignoring it. And so just looking for, guidance from admin on how can we engage with that conversation? How can we have a deeper dive outside of this scope so we can bring back a potential solution? Or maybe the solution is already internal and can be done internally. But I just don't want to walk away from this knowing that the underlying problem is that people are leaving the department for very specific reasons and not just a problem of closing to the public.
I mean, I'm happy to meet.
I was going to say, yeah, I'm happy to meet with Patrick as often as needed. I mean, until we meet and work it out, that's
All
kind
right,
of what I can
go
say
ahead,
at this point.
Vice Chair Pyska.
I think you have told us before the issues that you're up against with staff retention. And you've been warning us for a while now that these were gonna have very real impacts. And I will say, I hear from people that they're impressed that our tax collector is actually at the window working, and you are closing things out. So, you know, if you're asking for this, it's serious. And, you know, it's not something we have to be okay with, but you have to have lunch. And your staff has to have lunch. And this, you know, this is an ongoing conversation on retention, and it's not coming out of the blue. You have warned us. So, I mean, we just need to approve this, and we need to figure out how to better retain staff.
And thank you, tax collector served me. He took my
Yeah.
property tax payment when there wasn't staff. So I'm not, we need to allow you, in my opinion, to close, but I just wanted to state also, we're past the main property tax deadline, so is it a little slower right now? I mean, maybe it's not, I don't know.
The issue that we have now is we've added more programs, and cannabis tax is one of them, and May is the cannabis tax season.
So not
we're actually,
necessarily.
we're pretty busy. We structure with appointments. We do our best to try to keep scheduling in a coherent way, but we're still going to be busy, unfortunately.
And then I'm assuming we're going to do a press release, a wide notice about this, so people would know we're not open in those hours, or is
Well,
that possible?
I think at this point what we're doing is that we're going to do it as needed, and that could be on a daily basis. If we have someone call out sick, then we'll have to close for lunch. Part of the reason the county's ordinance only allows department heads to close from noon to 1 without board approval. So that's why I picked that, because it gives us the flexibility to do what we need. It's also, we favor it over end of day closures, because if someone comes from out of area and they get here at 2 and we're going to be closed until 5, let's say, then they have to come back another day.
Okay.
At least from noon to 1, people can always return at 1 and be assisted, even if it means a delay for them.
Okay, and then last question, I don't know if this is possible, but with the staffing issues, is there any chance of hiring 900-hour employees to help with, you know, I don't know if that's possible because they have to be trained, but I don't need an answer today. I'm just wondering if that's something we thought about.
We've looked at it.
Okay.
And, it is the training issue is the problem.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, understood. Go ahead, Supervisor Owen.
No, we definitely need to support you, and you're very much appreciated. I have a question, basically, how much traffic do we get between the hours of 12 and 1? Are people coming in on their lunch hours to make these payments? I didn't know if there would be like 11 to noon or anything along those lines. That's my first question.
Our busiest time, we go to lunch in 3 shifts. We go 11 to 12, 12 to 1, and 1 to 2. That whole period from 11 to 2 is generally busy.
Okay.
Because not everyone has the same lunch, but
I see.
that is typically our busier time, that middle of the day.
I just didn't know if it would, hurt those that only have that hour. The next question is, do you have any solutions or any thoughts that we can, for us to be able to help better support you? Is there anything we can do as a board to better support you?
I think there are some things we can do, and I think that's probably why it'd be valuable to, meet, and we can walk through some of that. But yeah, some of it is that it is just hard. I mean, we have the constraints that we have, and I'm a small office, so when we lose people, it does, hurt. But, yeah, thank you.
Supervisor Sabatier.
So this is kind of a undefined timeline. Will you be back to the board in 3 months to?
When he gets another hire.
I mean, I'm just wondering, like, is there a solution, a timeline for a potential solution to be brought back to us? Because again, I don't think I have a choice. You don't have the staff, but I also don't like it. So what's the timeline? Because I don't want to do indefinite.
We can definitely update the board in June at budget. And if we get this resolved before then, we can update. We've already submitted all the positions to HR, and they're actually, I think 2 of them are already up today. We have someone else leaving in another week, I believe, so we can't fly that position for another week. But I'm also hoping we can use that list right now. So, I mean, our hope is that we can get these 3 to 4 people on in the next few weeks, but then we still have to get them trained.
Sure.
But the hiring process, unless it's an existing county employee, realistically, it's probably 3 to 4 weeks before we can really get these bodies back in the office.
And not that I'm necessarily interested, but is your staff on the list for incentives?
I believe our accountant class is on the list for incentives. Yeah, we haven't used it before. We have an issue because we often don't fail the recruitment. We do hire, but then the person leaves. So that's probably something else we can talk about.
All right, can somebody help me out? I shouldn't have to ask, but did I open it for public yet?
No.
No. Is there any public here that wants to comment? No hands. I'll close public comment. Did you want to comment on this item?
I did.
Yes, please.
So, sorry, I wasn't a participant today, so I couldn't chime in, so I ran over.
Yeah.
Remember, the incentives have been changed, so there has to be failed recruitments first. And prior to March, he was fully staffed, so he would not until we have, he meets 3 out of 5 of the criterias, unless we make a change.
But he's on the list, that was the question.
No.
There's no more.
Because he hasn't had a failed recruitment yet. Because he was fully staffed until March, and so now we're having the problem, and then so until there are multiple failed recruitments and you meet 3 out of 5 of the criteria, you're not eligible for the incentive. Because we changed that about a year ago or 9 months ago.
Okay.
And maybe as things happen, we can learn from those things, that if you're at a point where you have to close your office, that maybe we shouldn't wait for another failed recruitment, and so maybe we can review some of that. I don't know, just putting it out there.
Certainly.
Okay. Anything else, Director? No. Okay. Thank you. All right. There was no hands online, so I'm going to close public comment, bring it back to the board for action, if needed.
Direction is?
Direction.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Okay.
So you got direction.
We'll be as sparing as possible. Thank you.
And Casey said she's willing to help and she has experience in your office.
12-1.
That's what I was going to say. You beat me to it.
Didn't get lunch either.
And well, that was our last public, except for reports, can we forego?
I believe you have a majority vote of yes.
I got consensus. We're going to forego reports for this week. You don't get to vote. We're going to forego that, so I'm going to read off closed session. Okay, we're going to go into our closed session 9.1, Public Employee Evaluation, title, Interim Public Works Director. 9.2, Public Employee Evaluation, title, Special Districts Administrator. 9.3, Conference with Labor Negotiator, and that's a conference with Labor Negotiator, Chief Negotiator Susan Parker, and County Negotiators Jay Salone, Stephen Carter, Casey Moreno, Pam Samick, Diana Rico, and B, Employee Organization, Deputy County Council Association. 9.4, Conference with Legal Counsel, Significant Exposure to Litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54-956.9 D2 E1 6 potential cases. 9.5, Conference with A, temporary representatives designated to meet with county department heads regarding salary and benefits, and B, unrepresented management employees. And finally, 9.6, Conference with legal counsel, existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54-956.9 D1, that is FERC proceeding number P77, the Potter Valley Hydroelectric Project. Is there anybody in the public that wishes to comment on the titles of any of those items? No hands, nobody in the room. So we're going to close the open session and move into closed session at this point. Um,